If there's one question I get like freaking clockwork at least once a day, it's, can I afford to buy another combustion vehicle? Can I buy another internal combustion car? Does the rise of EVs and their rapidly growing popularity mean that if I buy a combustion car now, I'm going to be stuck with something where the resale value tanks at the end of my ownership, or I won't be able to sell it at all because of regulation or something of that nature? And I get the rhetoric about green cars and EVs and all that stuff. I really do understand the rhetoric, but the reality and the magnitude of the assignment, if the engineering proposition is we're going to re-engineer the fleet, and what we're going to do is we're going to turn it into all electric cars or all enviro cars or something. If that's the assignment that you give some techno wizard, some social engineering wizard, then what do you got to do to solve this problem, okay? You got to quantify it first. You got to say how many vehicles need replacement. And the answer is 18.5 million. So if you look up in the sky and some astronomer says to you, there are 20 trillion stars in the Milky Way, or whatever freaking number it is, people tend to go, like this. And that's because you can't conceptualize that number, right? So I'm going to conceptualize 18.5 million light vehicles for you. If we get 1 million light vehicles and we park them in a conga line with no space in between the bumpers, so the snout of one right fair up the anus of the other, and we do that 1 million vehicles long, it's going to stretch from Sydney to Perth. And if you're not from around here, that's the same as stretching from LA to New York, right? So that's rather a lot of vehicles, and that's only unos million. So we basically need a car park that stretches from Sydney to Perth, and it's 18 lanes wide to accommodate the size of the problem, the number of vehicles that need changing over. That's a significant number. And we operate in a market that has the capacity currently to absorb 1 million new vehicles every year. So without any constraints whatsoever, if we just supply only EVs, that's 18 years to solve this problem. And let's face it, there are quite a few constraints, aren't there? There's the most massive constraint on the supply of EVs. They can't build them, you know? They can't build them to meet demand. Certainly here in Australia, buyers are queuing up. The wait is extensive. More people want EVs than the car industry can supply. So that's kind of a problem. And even if we took that away, there are some categories of vehicles where electric vehicles are just not available, like 4x4 dual cab utes, Land Cruiser and Patrol, vehicles of this nature, vans as well. There's no salient supply of electric courier vans. So we'd have to wait for the industry to ramp itself up for that, which is a significant dwell time as well. But let's say that just on average, we were able to do the whole supply of 500,000 vehicles a year. Then that's going to take 36 years, isn't it? And at the end of the 36 years, there's still going to be 8 or 9 million combustion vehicles on the roads. So any suggestion that there is going to be some rapid evolution from the vehicles that I've been looking at walking around here in the centre of Sydney today, there's like 99 combustion cars for every electric car that drives past. That's just how the motoring public rolls at the moment. In 30 or 40 years' time, and I won't be here to confirm this, but it's still going to be like 50% combustion. So my suggestion to you is that it's perfectly rational to buy a combustion vehicle now, and you will save roughly 20% compared with an equivalent electric car, subject to an equivalent electric car actually being available in the category in which you want to buy a vehicle. So any suggestion that the transition from the current fleet and its preponderance to be, internal combustion, and it rapidly transitioning into a bunch of silent but deadly EVs or something, that's just off with the fairies. It doesn't add up. It doesn't fit in with reality. Like, you do the numbers. You pick a number of vehicles that will be supplied. If it's 500,000 vehicles, it's a 36-year proposition. If it's 333,000 vehicles, it's like 54 years. That's like half a century to do this job, right? And I don't think the climate has the capacity to wait for 50 years to make such a small difference to CO2, which, let's not forget, that's why we're doing this purportedly, right? We're not doing it because electric cars are better or any of that stuff. We're doing it purely to conform with the CO2 reduction mandate that appears to be happening all the way around the world. And I don't want to debate with you now whether or not that's a good idea. I personally think it's a very good idea, but you might have a different view to me on that, and we live in a democracy more or less, so you're allowed to have that view. But let's not debate that. Let's remember why we're doing EVs. They're not superior, they're not objectively superior to combustion. They're objectively inferior and at the same time more expensive. So until all of these issues, and also some fundamentals like the supply of lithium. The supply of lithium, according to the boss of lithium at Rio Tinto, the mining giant, the supply of lithium is so constrained that they don't know how demand will be met in the foreseeable future. That means all of the lithium projects that are projected into the future will be insufficient to meet the demand of the battery manufacturers themselves. So we're going to be in a situation where batteries are supply limited for the foreseeable future. And if you're the manufacturer of an electric car, then that's a problem for you, and you're going to have to keep up the supply of combustion vehicles just so you can fulfill your obligations to your, that'd be a combustion vehicle just there, incidentally. If you want to fulfill your obligations to your shareholders, to your stakeholders, right, you're not going to be able to bone combustion. Not at all, right? And the regulators in different countries that have committed to no sales of, combustion cars by 2030, 2035, whatever it is, they're going to have to walk that back. And in fact, they're starting to walk that back now in London. So the promise of electric utopia and its rapid onset is extremely different from the reality of changing an existing fleet of overwhelmingly combustion cars into a fleet of electric cars. And there is absolutely no way that I can see that this will happen quickly. Like, if you can see this happening quickly and you can lay it out for me, it's not going to be enough to say, oh, they'll just sell more and more electric cars. You can't just base it on current sales figures. I get the demand thing. It's the supply is limited, the minerals are limited, and the life of the vehicles. Like, if you bought a Land Cruiser last year, it's going to be on the road for the next 15 years. So every one of the combustion cars that was sold last year, a million of them, they're going to be on the road for the next 15 years. And it's pretty much a million combustion cars this year, and they're going to be on the road for the next 15 years. Yeah. And the year after that, like we're talking 2025 now, the nearly a million cars that are going to be all combustion cars sold in 2025, they're going to be on the road for 15 years. So worrying about the resale value of your combustion car, if you're buying in the next couple of years, that's just a complete red herring to me. And I get the way propaganda is, and I get the way people are talking up electric cars, but the reality is very different. And I think you're perfectly safe buying a combustion car for the foreseeable future, and in fact you're still going to be where the mainstream market is and essentially where the financial strength of the market is for the foreseeable future.